The morning sun was already too bright, and Rita Chen squinted as she stepped off the bus 2 stops early. Walking would save her $3 in fare, and right now every single dollar mattered. She clutched her worn purse against her side, feeling the outline of the $20 bill folded inside. It was all she had left until Friday, when her paycheck would finally come through from the diner where she worked double shifts. 3 more days. Just 3 more days, and then she could buy groceries, pay the overdue electric bill, and maybe, just maybe, have enough left over for gas. But today wasn't about any of that. Today was about finding a dress. Her daughter Lily's 8th grade graduation ceremony was happening this Thursday evening. Rita had been so focused on making sure Lily had a nice outfit that she'd completely forgotten about herself until last night. Lily had come into the kitchen while Rita was counting coins and asked so innocently what her mom was planning to wear to the ceremony. The question had hit Rita like a punch to the stomach. She'd looked down at her stained work uniform and realized she had nothing appropriate. Her nicest clothes had worn out years ago, back when her husband Tom was still alive and they'd occasionally gone out to dinner or church. Now her wardrobe consisted of the diner uniform, old jeans, and a few t-shirts that had seen better days. She couldn't show up to Lily's graduation looking like she just rolled out of bed. The other mothers would be dressed nicely. The teachers would be there. Most importantly, Lily would be watching, and Rita knew her daughter was already self-conscious about their situation. Kids at school weren't always kind about things like that. So here she was, walking the 6 blocks to Second Chances, the thrift store on Maple Street. It was the only place where $20 might actually be enough for a complete outfit. She'd been there before, buying Lily's school clothes and winter coats when the seasons changed. The bell above the door jingled as Rita stepped inside. The familiar smell of old fabric and cleaning solution filled her nose. The store was quiet this Tuesday morning, with only a few other customers browsing the aisles. Rita recognized the cashier, a young woman named Beth who was always friendly, and gave her a small wave. "Looking for anything special today?" Beth called out. "Just a dress," Rita replied, trying to sound casual. "Something simple." She made her way to the women's section, her practiced eyes scanning the racks. Years of thrift shopping had taught her what to look for. She needed something that fit, didn't have stains or tears, and looked respectable enough for a school ceremony. Color didn't matter much. Fancy didn't matter at all. She just needed to look like a mom who had her life together, even if that was far from the truth. The first rack yielded nothing. Too small, too large, too damaged, too expensive. A floral dress caught her eye for a moment until she saw the $25 price tag. She moved on. The second rack was more promising. She pulled out a black dress, simple and plain, but when she held it up to the light, she could see it was nearly transparent in places. The fabric had worn too thin. She put it back. Then her fingers touched something that felt different. It was navy blue, a modest cut with short sleeves and a hem that would probably hit just below her knees. She pulled it out carefully, inspecting every inch. No stains, no tears. The zipper worked smoothly. The fabric was a polyester blend that had held up well over time. She checked the size tag and felt a small flutter of hope. It might actually fit. She turned the tag over to see the price. $18. Rita did the math quickly in her head. $18 for the dress, leaving her with $2. She'd need those $2 for the bus fare home since she couldn't walk carrying a purchase. It would work. It would just barely work. She draped the dress over her arm, almost afraid to let it go, and continued browsing just to be sure there wasn't something better. But after 15 more minutes of searching, she knew this navy dress was her best option. She headed toward the fitting rooms to try it on. The fitting room mirror was unforgiving in its fluorescent lighting, but Rita tried to see herself objectively. The dress fit. It wasn't glamorous or fashionable, but it was clean and appropriate. She would look like a regular mom, not someone who was barely scraping by. That was all she needed. As she changed back into her jeans and faded t-shirt, Rita allowed herself a moment of relief. This small victory felt bigger than it should. Finding an $18 dress shouldn't feel like winning the lottery, but in her current situation, it did. She brought the dress up to the counter where Beth was organizing some jewelry in a display case. As Rita approached, she noticed another customer had come in. The woman stood out immediately. She was probably in her 50s, wearing clothes that screamed money. Designer jeans, a silk blouse, expensive-looking sunglasses pushed up on perfectly styled blonde hair. She was browsing through the racks with a detached air, pulling items out and barely looking at them before adding them to the pile growing over her arm. Rita wondered briefly why someone who could clearly afford department store prices was shopping at a thrift store. But she pushed the thought away. It wasn't her business. Rich people sometimes liked vintage things or enjoyed the thrill of finding deals. Whatever the reason, it didn't matter to her. Beth smiled at Rita as she approached. "Did you find what you needed?" "I did," Rita said, laying the navy dress on the counter. She opened her purse and carefully pulled out the $20 bill, unfolding it and smoothing it flat on the counter. Beth scanned the tag. $18 even. "This is a good find. The fabric is really nice quality." "I thought so too," Rita said, grateful that Beth didn't mention anything about the price or ask what the dress was for. Beth had always been tactful that way. As Beth folded the dress and began putting it in a bag, Rita was already calculating her route home. She'd take the bus to within 4 blocks of the apartment and walk the rest. That would save 50 cents that she could put toward bread and milk tomorrow. The wealthy woman had drifted closer to the counter now, her arms full of items. Rita could see silk scarves, a leather purse, several pieces of jewelry. The woman wasn't even looking at price tags. She was just taking things, trying them on right there in the middle of the store, draping necklaces over her outfit and checking her reflection in a small compact mirror. Rita glanced away, focusing on Beth counting out her change. $2 in bills handed over with a warm smile. "Thank you," Rita said, taking her change in the bag with her dress. She felt lighter already. One worry crossed off her list. But just as she turned to leave, she heard a sharp gasp behind her. "Excuse me." The wealthy woman's voice was loud, commanding. "Excuse me, stop right there." Rita turned, confused. The woman was staring directly at her. Her perfectly made-up face twisted in shock and anger. Several other customers had stopped to look. "That's my bracelet," the woman said, her voice rising. "You're wearing my bracelet." Rita looked down at her wrist automatically, and her heart stopped. There, glinting gold against her skin, was a bracelet she had never seen before in her life. She blinked, trying to make sense of it. How did that get there? She hadn't been trying on jewelry. She hadn't touched the jewelry section at all. I don't know where this came from," Rita stammered, her face flushing hot with confusion and embarrassment. "You stole it," the woman declared, loud enough for everyone in the store to hear. "I was looking at that bracelet, and now it's on your wrist. You took it when I wasn't looking." Rita's hand started to shake. This couldn't be happening, not now. Not when she'd finally managed to do this one simple thing for herself and her daughter. "I didn't take anything," Rita said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I swear I don't know how this got on my wrist." But the woman was already pulling out her phone, her expression hard and cold. "We're calling the police. Beth, don't let her leave. This woman is a thief." The bag with the navy dress slipped from Rita's trembling fingers and fell to the floor. Rita's mind was spinning. She stared at the gold bracelet on her wrist like it was a snake that had somehow wrapped itself around her skin. Her first instinct was to yank it off, but her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't work the clasp. "Please," she said, looking at Beth, then at the wealthy woman, then at the small crowd of customers who had gathered. "I didn't take this. I don't know how it got there." The woman's perfectly lined lips pressed into a thin, angry line. "Save it, I've dealt with shoplifters before. You people always have an excuse, you people." The words stung worse than the accusation itself. Rita felt her face burn with shame and anger mixed together. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that she'd never stolen anything in her life, that she was here spending her last $20 honestly. But her throat felt tight and she couldn't seem to form the words. Beth looked uncomfortable, glancing between Rita and the other woman. "Mrs. Whitmore, maybe there's been a misunderstanding. Rita is a regular customer here. She's never— I don't care if she's shopped here 100 times. The woman, Mrs. Whitmore, interrupted. "That doesn't mean she's honest. Look at her. Does she look like she could afford a gold bracelet like this?" Rita felt something crack inside her chest. The humiliation was complete now. Not only was she being accused of theft, but her poverty was being used as evidence against her. She looked down at her faded jeans, her worn sneakers, her t-shirt with a small stain near the hem that she'd tried to scrub out last night. Everything about her appearance was apparently proof of her guilt. "I'm calling the manager," Beth said quietly, reaching for the phone behind the counter. "Let's just everyone stay calm until we sort this out." "No need," Mrs. Whitmore said, her own phone already at her ear. "I'm calling the police." This is theft and I want her arrested. The word arrested made Rita's legs go weak. She grabbed the edge of the counter to steady herself. Arrested. Police. This couldn't be happening. She thought about Lily at school right now, probably sitting in math class or eating lunch with her friends, completely unaware that her mother was being accused of stealing in a thrift store. What would happen if she got arrested? Who would pick up Lily from school? Who would work her shifts at the diner? They'd already warned her that missing work would cost her the job. And the graduation, the graduation was in 2 days. Would she even be there? Would Lily have to sit through her special ceremony knowing her mother was in jail? Please, Rita tried again, her voice breaking. Just let me explain. I came in, I found the dress, I tried it on, and I came straight to the counter. I never went near the jewelry. I never touched any bracelets. Then explain how it's on your wrist right now, Mrs. Whitmore demanded, her voice dripping with contempt. Rita looked down at the bracelet again. It was delicate, with small links and what looked like real gold. It was the kind of thing she would never buy, even if she had money. It was too easy to lose, too impractical. She preferred her cheap watch that told time and nothing else. The manager appeared from the back room, a middle-aged man named Don who Rita had seen on previous visits. He assessed the situation quickly, his expression serious. What's going on here? He asked. This woman stole my bracelet, Mrs. Whitmore said immediately, pointing at Rita. I was looking at jewelry, and when I turned around, she was wearing it. I want her arrested for theft. Don looked at Rita, his eyebrows raised in question. I didn't take it, Rita said, trying to keep her voice steady. I don't know how it got on my wrist. I was only looking at dresses. She's lying, Mrs. Whitmore said flatly. Obviously, Don held up his hands. Okay, everyone just calm down. Let's look at the security footage. We have cameras covering the whole store. If we review the footage, we'll see exactly what happened. Rita felt a wave of relief so strong she almost cried. Yes, the cameras. The cameras would show she hadn't stolen anything. They'd show her going straight from the dress racks to the fitting room to the counter. They'd prove her innocence. Mrs. Whitmore hesitated for just a fraction of a second, something flickering across her face, but then she nodded. Fine, let's watch the footage. I know what I saw. Don gestured toward the back room. Beth, can you come help me pull up the footage? It'll just take a few minutes. He looked at Rita and Mrs. Whitmore. You two wait here. Don't go anywhere. As if Rita could leave anyway. Her legs still felt like jelly, and besides, running would only make her look guilty. She sank down onto the small bench near the counter, the one usually reserved for people waiting while their companions shopped. Mrs. Whitmore remained standing, her arms crossed, her designer purse tucked under one arm. She checked her phone, typed something, then looked at Rita with undisguised disgust. The other customers had mostly drifted away, though a few lingered nearby, pretending to browse while clearly listening. Rita could feel their eyes on her, their judgment. By tomorrow, this story would probably be all over the neighborhood. The single mom from the apartments who got caught stealing at the thrift store. It didn't matter that she hadn't stolen anything. The accusation alone was enough to ruin her reputation in this small community where everyone knew everyone's business. The minutes crawled by. Rita's mind kept racing through possibilities. Even if the cameras proved she hadn't taken the bracelet, how had it gotten on her wrist? Had someone else put it there as a prank? Had she somehow brushed against the jewelry display and it caught on her wrist without her noticing? That seemed impossible, but what other explanation was there? She tried to remember every moment since she'd entered the store. She'd waved to Beth. She'd gone to the dress racks. She'd pulled out several dresses before finding the navy one. She'd gone to the fitting room alone. She'd come back out and gone straight to the counter. At no point had she gone near the jewelry section, which was all the way on the other side of the store near the accessories. Unless, Rita's mind caught on something. When she'd been at the counter, Mrs. Whitmore had been standing nearby trying on jewelry. She'd been draping necklaces over her clothes, checking her reflection. She'd been close, very close, close enough to touch her. But why would a wealthy woman put her own bracelet on Rita's wrist? It made no sense. Finally, Dawn emerged from the back room with Beth following close behind. Both of them looked uncomfortable. Dawn was carrying a tablet, presumably with the security footage loaded. Okay, Dawn said, his voice careful. We reviewed the footage from the past 30 minutes. Rita stood up, her heart pounding. This was it, the proof of her innocence. Don looked at Mrs. Whitmore, and something in his expression made Rita's stomach drop even before he spoke. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said quietly, "we need to talk about what we saw on the footage." Mrs. Whitmore's confident expression faltered. "What do you mean?" "It should show clearly that she took my bracelet." "Actually," Don said, and he turned the tablet around so everyone could see the screen. "It shows something very different. On the screen, Rita could see herself at the counter talking to Beth, her back mostly to the camera. Mrs. Whitmore was visible in the frame, standing just behind and to the side of Rita. The footage was silent, but the images were clear. Don pressed play, and they all watched as Mrs. Whitmore stepped closer to Rita. Her hand reached out, and in one smooth, quick motion she slipped something onto Rita's wrist. The bracelet. Mrs. Whitmore had put the bracelet on Rita's wrist herself. The silence in the store was deafening. Rita stared at the screen, trying to process what she was seeing. Mrs. Whitmore had put the bracelet on her. This whole thing, the accusation, the humiliation, the threat of arrest, it was all deliberate. But why? Why would anyone do this? Beth gasped softly. Don's face had gone hard. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, and his voice was no longer polite. "You put that bracelet on her wrist yourself, and then you accused her of stealing it. That's not just false accusation. That's attempted fraud. That's a crime." Mrs. Whitmore's face had gone pale under her makeup. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. That's not. You don't understand." "I think I understand perfectly," Don said. "I've seen this kind of thing before. You stage a theft, accuse an innocent person, make a scene, and then what? Were you planning to demand she pay you back? Or were you going to press charges and drop them in exchange for money? What was the end game here?" "No," Mrs. Whitmore said, and her voice was suddenly different, higher, almost panicked. "No, it wasn't like that. I wasn't trying to. I didn't want money." "Then what did you want?" Don demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, you just committed a crime against one of my customers. I should be the one calling the police, not you." Rita watched as Mrs. Whitmore's carefully composed exterior began to crack. The woman's hands were shaking now, just like Rita's had been minutes before. Her eyes, which had been so cold and certain, were now filling with tears. "I don't know," Mrs. Whitmore whispered. "I don't know what I was doing." She looked at Rita, really looked at her for the first time, and whatever she saw there made her face crumple completely. The tears spilled over, running down her cheeks, taking her mascara with them. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I can't explain. I don't know why I did that." Rita stood frozen, her anger and fear now mixed with complete confusion. This powerful, wealthy woman who had just tried to destroy her life was now. Rita didn't know what to do. Part of her wanted to walk away, to take her dress and her $2 in change and never look back. This woman had just tried to ruin her life. She'd been ready to have Rita arrested, to publicly humiliate her, to take away everything over a lie. Rita had every right to be angry, to demand justice, to let Don call the police just like Mrs. Whitmore had threatened to do to her. But the sound of the woman's crying was raw and real, in a way that made Rita's chest ache with unexpected recognition. She'd heard crying like that before. She'd done crying like that before, late at night after Lily had gone to bed, when the weight of everything became too much and she'd locked herself in the bathroom and sobbed until she couldn't breathe. That kind of crying wasn't about manipulation or performance. It was the sound of someone breaking. Don seemed to be thinking along the same lines. His anger had softened into something more complicated, though he still held the tablet like evidence. "Beth," he said quietly, "why don't you get Mrs. Whitmore some water?" Beth nodded and hurried to the back room. The few remaining customers who'd been watching had finally moved away, sensing this was something private and painful that they shouldn't be witnessing. Mrs. Whitmore had sunk down onto the bench where Rita had been sitting moments before. She was still crying, though trying to muffle the sounds behind her hands. Her shoulders shook with each breath. Rita found herself moving closer, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because she'd spent the last 2 years learning that people did desperate, strange things when they were drowning in pain. Maybe it was because, despite everything that had just happened, she could see this woman was drowning. She sat down on the bench, leaving space between them but close enough to speak softly. "Why?" Rita asked. It was the only question that mattered now. Mrs. Whitmore lowered her hands. Her face was a mess of smeared makeup and tears. and somehow that made her look more human than she had when she'd first walked in with her perfect hair and cold eyes. "I don't have a good reason," Mrs. Whitmore said, her voice thick and unsteady. "I don't have any reason that would make sense to you or anyone else." "Try," Rita said, and she was surprised by how gentle her own voice sounded. Beth returned with a bottle of water and handed it to Mrs. Whitmore, who took it with trembling hands. Don had pulled up a stool and sat down, still watchful but no longer hostile. Mrs. Whitmore opened the water bottle and took a long drink, then pressed the cold plastic against her forehead like she was trying to cool a fever. "My daughter died," she said finally. "1 year ago today. She was 13 years old." The words fell into the quiet store like stones into water, rippling outward. Rita felt them hit her chest, and suddenly everything shifted. Not excused, but explained. Not forgiven, but understood. Her name was Ashley, Mrs. Whitmore continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "She had leukemia. We fought it for 3 years. We tried everything, spent everything, hoped for everything, and then 1 year ago today she died in a hospital room while I held her hand." Rita's eyes burned. She thought of Lily, healthy and whole and annoyed with her mother for being too protective. She thought about what it would be like to lose that, to have that taken away, and the thought was so terrible she had to push it away. "I'm so sorry," Rita said, and she meant it with everything she had. Mrs. Whitmore looked at her with red, swollen eyes. "You shouldn't be sorry. You shouldn't be kind to me. I just tried to have you arrested. I put that bracelet on your wrist and then acted like you'd stolen it. I knew exactly what I was doing, even if I can't explain why I was doing it." "But why?" Beth asked from behind the counter. "Why would you do that to someone?" Mrs. Whitmore was quiet for a long moment, staring at the water bottle in her hands. "Because I'm angry," she said finally. "I'm so angry all the time, and I don't know what to do with it. I'm angry at God, at the universe, at the doctors, at myself. I'm angry that other people get to have their daughters when mine is gone. I'm angry that life just keeps going like nothing happened when my whole world ended." She looked at Rita again. "When I saw you in here looking at dresses and being so careful about the price, and then you smiled at the cashier when you found something that worked, I hated you for a second. I hated that you got to have that small, normal moment of success. I hated that you were probably going somewhere nice with someone you love. And I wanted to take it away from you like everything was taken from me." The honesty was brutal and ugly and painfully human. Rita understood intellectually that this didn't make what Mrs. Whitmore had done okay. Understanding wasn't the same as excusing. But she also understood grief, the way it could twist you up inside and make you into someone you didn't recognize. "I've been doing things like this," Mrs. Whitmore admitted, and she looked ashamed now. "Not exactly like this, but similar. Creating situations, starting conflicts, making scenes. My therapist says it's because I'm trying to feel something other than grief, or maybe trying to make other people feel as bad as I do. I don't know. I stopped going to therapy 2 months ago because I got tired of talking about my feelings. Talking doesn't bring her back." Don shifted on his stool. "Mrs. Whitmore, what you did today was serious. You could have destroyed this woman's life. If we hadn't had cameras, if I'd believed you, Rita could be in handcuffs right now. She could have lost her job, her reputation, maybe even her freedom. Do you understand that?" "Yes," Mrs. Whitmore said, and fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just trying to answer the question of why." Rita surprised herself by reaching out and touching Mrs. Whitmore's arm. The woman flinched like she expected to be hit, but Rita just left her hand there, a gentle pressure. "I understand loss too," Rita said quietly. "Maybe not the same kind, but I understand. My husband died 2 years ago. Heart attack. He was 36 years old. He went to work one morning and never came home." Mrs. Whitmore's eyes widened slightly. "I have a daughter too," Rita continued. "She's 13, actually. Same age as your Ashley was. Her name is Lily, and she's graduating from 8th grade in 2 days. That dress I was buying, it's for her graduation. It's all I have left until Friday, and I needed something decent to wear so I wouldn't embarrass her." Mrs. Whitmore's face crumpled again, but differently this time. "Oh God," she breathed. "Your daughter is 13. The same age." "And I tried to—" "Yeah," Rita said simply. "You did. And it was wrong, and it hurt, and it scared me so badly I thought I might throw up. But I'm also looking at you right now and seeing someone who's in so much pain they can't think straight. I've been there. Different circumstances, but I've been there. How did you—" Mrs. Whitmore started, then stopped. How did you not become like this? How did you lose your husband and not turn into someone who hurts people? Rita thought about that for a moment. I had to keep going for Lily. When Tom died, I wanted to fall apart. Some days I still want to fall apart, but Lily needed me to be her mom, to feed her and get her to school and help with homework and all the regular stuff. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart completely because she was depending on me. Ashley was depending on me too, Mrs. Whitmore whispered. I was supposed to save her. That's what mothers do. They save their children. You can't save someone from cancer, Rita said gently. That's not how it works. You can love them and fight for them and be there with them, but you can't always save them. I know that here. Mrs. Whitmore tapped her head. But I don't know it here. She pressed her hand to her chest. In here, I still feel like I failed her. Like if I just tried harder or found better doctors or prayed more or something, anything, she'd still be here. Don cleared his throat. I'm still trying to figure out what to do here. Mrs. Whitmore, what you did was illegal. False accusation, attempted fraud, whatever you want to call it. I should call the police, Mrs. Whitmore nodded, accepting this. I know. Do what you need to do. I'll deal with the consequences. Rita found herself speaking before she'd fully thought it through. Don, can I talk to you for a minute? Privately? Don looked surprised but nodded. They stepped away from the bench over near the dress racks where Mrs. Whitmore and Beth couldn't hear them clearly. I don't want to press charges, Rita said quietly. Rita, she tried to frame you for theft. That's not something we should just let slide. I know what she did. Believe me, I know. I was terrified. I'm still shaking. Rita held out her hands to show the tremor that hadn't quite stopped. But look at her. She's not a career criminal. She's not trying to run some scam. She's a grieving mother who's lost her mind a little bit because her child died. That doesn't make it okay, Don insisted. No, it doesn't. But what good does it do to call the police? She'll get arrested, probably get a record, pay fines, or maybe even do jail time. And then what? Does that help anyone? Does that help me? All it does is add more pain and punishment to someone who's already drowning in both. Don looked conflicted. So you just want to let her walk away? I didn't say that, Rita said. I think she needs help, real help. Not punishment, but help. That's very generous of you, considering what she just put you through. Rita glanced back at Mrs. Whitmore, who was still sitting on the bench, her head down, her whole posture defeated. When Tom died, people were kind to Memmy. Rita watched as Mrs. Whitmore gathered her things, her movements slow and uncertain like someone recovering from a long illness. The woman looked smaller now, diminished somehow, without the armor of her expensive clothes and cold confidence to hide behind. Wait, Rita heard herself say, and Mrs. Whitmore froze, turning back with fearful eyes, probably expecting Rita to change her mind about pressing charges. Rita reached into her purse and pulled out one of the business cards from the diner where she worked. It was nothing fancy, just basic white cardstock with the diner's name and phone number printed on it. She'd written her own name on the back in pen once when a regular customer had asked how to reach her about a babysitting job that never materialized. This is where I work, Rita said, handing the card to Mrs. Whitmore. If you need to talk, or if you need someone who understands loss, you can find me there. I work the lunch shift most days and usually dinner shift on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mrs. Whitmore stared at the card like it was something precious and fragile. Why would you do this? Why would you want to ever see me again after what I did? Rita thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated. She was still angry. Her hands were still shaking. Part of her wanted to never see this woman again, to forget this whole horrible morning ever happened. But there was another part of her, a part that had been shaped by loss and struggle and the occasional unexpected kindness of strangers, that recognized something in Mrs. Whitmore that she couldn't ignore. Because I think you need a friend, Rita said simply, and because I know what it's like to feel completely alone in your grief. When Tom died, people were there at first. They brought food and sent cards and said all the right things. But after a few weeks, they expected me to be okay again. They wanted me to move on, get back to normal. They didn't understand that there was no going back to normal when your normal had died. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes filled with tears again. But she nodded. Yes, everyone wants you to be done grieving on their schedule. They want you to be okay so they can stop feeling uncomfortable around you. Exactly, Rita said. So if you need someone who won't expect you to be okay, who'll let you be a mess without judgment, you can find me. I'm not saying we're friends or anything like that. I'm just saying you don't have to be alone in this. Mrs. Whitmore clutched the card to her chest. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve this, but thank you. She left the store slowly, looking back once before the door closed behind her. Through the window, Rita could see her sitting in a sleek black luxury car in the parking lot, her head resting on the steering wheel. Beth came around the counter, her young face full of concern. Rita, are you really okay? That was intense. Nobody would blame you if you wanted to press charges. I know, Rita said, and she realized she was exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her feeling drained and shaky. But I meant what I said. She needs help, not punishment. Don was shaking his head, but there was respect in his eyes. You're something else, Rita Chen. Most people in your position would have wanted blood. What good would that do? Rita asked, and she meant it genuinely. Would it undo what happened? Would it make me feel better? I don't think so. I think it would just be more pain and anger piled on top of pain and anger. Still, Don said, the offer stands. If you change your mind, that security footage is saved. You just say the word. Thank you, Rita said. I appreciate that. She picked up the bag with her navy dress from where it had fallen on the floor. The dress was still neatly folded inside, untouched by all the drama that had unfolded around it. Beth handed her the $2 in change that had been left on the counter. As Rita walked home, she kept thinking about Mrs. Whitmore sitting in her expensive car, crying. She thought about how grief could make you into someone you didn't recognize, how pain could twist your judgment until you did things that made no sense. She thought about her own grief journey, which had been different but no less difficult. When Tom had died, Rita had been angry too. Not at other people, but at him. She'd been furious that he'd left her alone with a child to raise and bills to pay, and a future that looked nothing like what they'd planned. It wasn't rational. He hadn't chosen to have a heart attack. He hadn't wanted to die at 36 and leave his family. But grief wasn't rational, and for months she'd been angry at a dead man who couldn't defend himself or explain or apologize. She'd worked through it eventually. Time had helped, and so had Lily, who needed her mother to be functional even when being functional felt impossible. Rita had learned to carry her grief differently, to make room for both missing Tom and moving forward with life. It hadn't been easy, and there were still hard days when the weight of it all felt like too much. But she'd learned something important along the way. Hurt people hurt people. When you're drowning in pain, you sometimes lash out at whoever's nearby. Not because they deserve it, but because the pain has to go somewhere. Mrs. Whitmore had been lashing out. It was wrong and hurtful and could have destroyed Rita's life, but it was also a symptom of a woman who was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. Rita climbed the stairs to her apartment, her legs heavy with exhaustion. She unlocked the door and stepped into the quiet space. Lily wouldn't be home from school for another 4 hours. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. She hung the bag with the navy dress in her closet, checking once more to make sure it was really okay, really suitable for the graduation. It was. She had her dress. That problem was solved, even if it had come with complications she never could have anticipated. Rita made herself a sandwich and sat at the small kitchen table, but she wasn't really hungry. She kept thinking about the look on Mrs. Whitmore's face when she'd realized the cameras had caught her. The shock, then the horror, then the complete breakdown. That wasn't the look of a con artist caught in the act. That was the look of someone who'd surprised even themselves with their own behavior. Her phone buzzed with a text from her manager at the diner, asking if she could pick up an extra shift on Wednesday. Rita usually jumped at extra shifts because extra hours meant extra money, but Wednesday was the day before Lily's graduation. She needed that day to rest, to get ready, to be present for her daughter's big moment. She texted back a polite decline and felt guilty about it, even though she knew she was making the right choice. The afternoon passed slowly. Rita tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. She paid a few bills online, watching her bank account balance drop lower with each payment. She did laundry in the building's basement laundry room, feeding quarters into the ancient machines and folding clothes on the table that wobbled. When Lily finally came home from school, backpack heavy with books and attitude, Rita felt her heart lift like it always did when her daughter walked through the door. Lily was everything good that remained from her life with Tom. She had his eyes, his laugh, his stubborn streak that drove Rita crazy but also made her proud. How was school? Rita asked, the same question she asked every day. Fine, Lily said. The same answer she gave most days. She was at that age where parents were simultaneously everything and nothing, needed and resented in equal measure. Excited about graduation? Lily shrugged, trying to seem cool, but Rita could see the hint of a smile. I guess. It's just middle school. It's a big deal, Rita insisted. You're moving on to high school. That's huge. Did you get a dress? Lily asked, trying to sound casual but clearly concerned about the answer. I did, Rita said, relief flooding through her all over again. It's navy blue and very respectable. You won't be embarrassed? Lily rolled her eyes, but she looked pleased. I wasn't worried about being embarrassed. Sure you weren't, Rita said with a smile. How about I make spaghetti for dinner? Can we afford that? Lily asked, and the question stabbed at Rita's heart because 13-year-olds shouldn't have to worry about whether their family could afford pasta. We can afford spaghetti, Rita said firmly. Go do your homework. While the water boiled and the sauce simmered, Rita thought about telling Lily about what had happened at the thrift store. But what would she say? That a rich woman had tried to frame her for theft, but she'd let it go because the woman's daughter had died? It was too complicated. Too heavy for a Tuesday evening before a graduation. Lily had enough to worry about without carrying her mother's burdens too. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Rita sat on the small balcony of their apartment, looking out at the neighborhood streetlights. She thought about Mrs. Whitmore in her big house somewhere, probably sitting alone with her grief and her guilt. She wondered if the woman would actually call her therapist like she'd promised, or if she'd just keep spiraling until she did something even worse. Rita pulled out her phone and looked at the business card she'd given Mrs. Whitmore, or rather the duplicate of it she'd kept for herself. She wondered if she'd made a mistake, offering connection to someone who'd just tried to destroy her. Maybe kindness was stupid in situations like this. Maybe she should have pressed charges and let the legal system handle it. But even as she thought it, she knew she'd made the right choice, not because Mrs. Whitmore deserved it, but because Rita believed in a kind of mercy that didn't require deserving. She believed in giving people a chance to be better than their worst. Rita stared at the money in her hands, her mind racing. $1,000. It was more money than she'd seen in one place since Tom's life insurance had paid out. And most of that had gone to funeral costs and catching up on bills they'd fallen behind on during his illness. $1,000 could mean groceries for months. It could mean the electric bill paid on time, gas in the car, new shoes for Lily who'd been making do with sneakers that were getting too small. It could mean not lying awake at night doing math in her head, trying to figure out which bill could wait another week and which one absolutely had to be paid. But it also felt wrong somehow. Not morally wrong exactly, but complicated. Victoria Whitmore had tried to have her arrested less than 24 hours ago. Taking her money felt like it might create some kind of obligation, or change what had happened from a moment of mercy into a transaction. Rita didn't want what she'd done to become something she'd been paid for. She sat at the kitchen table with the money and the note spread out in front of her, trying to think clearly. The note said not to see it as payment. Victoria had called it one mother helping another. Was that what it was? Or was it guilt money? An attempt to ease a conscience that should probably hurt for a while. Lily shuffled out of her bedroom, still in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why are you up so early? Rita quickly folded the money back into its envelope, though she wasn't fast enough to hide it completely. Lily's eyes went wide. Is that money? Where did that come from? Rita hesitated. She'd decided not to tell Lily about the incident at the store, but she'd also always tried to be honest with her daughter. Tom's sudden death had taught them both that life could change in an instant, and hiding things didn't protect anyone from that reality. It's from someone I met yesterday, Rita said carefully. Someone who's going through a hard time and wanted to help us out. Like Charity? Lily's face immediately showed that mixture of pride and shame that Rita knew too well. Her daughter hated being the object of pity. Not exactly, Rita said. More like one person who understands struggle helping another person who understands struggle. Lily sat down at the table, suddenly looking older than 13. Are we going to take it? The question surprised Rita. What do you think we should do? I don't know, Lily said, chewing her bottom lip the way she always did when thinking hard about something. We need it. I know we need it. But it feels weird to take money from a stranger. She's not exactly a stranger, Rita said. But you're right. It is complicated. They sat together in the early morning quiet, both thinking. Finally, Lily spoke again. Dad used to say that when someone offers you help, you shouldn't say no just because of pride. He said accepting help with grace was just as important as giving it. Rita felt her throat tighten. She remembered Tom saying that, remembered the context. It had been when her mother had offered to lend them money for a car repair they couldn't afford, and Rita had wanted to refuse because she didn't want to seem like a failure. Tom had convinced her to accept, had helped her see that her mother wasn't judging them but just wanted to help her daughter's family. Your dad was very smart, Rita said quietly. So maybe we should take it, Lily suggested. And then maybe someday when we're doing better, we can help someone else the same way. Rita looked at her daughter and felt a surge of pride so strong it almost hurt. 13 years old and already understanding the concept of paying forward kindness, already seeing past her own discomfort to the bigger picture. Okay, Rita said. We'll take it. But we're going to use it wisely, and we're going to remember that someday we pay this forward. Lily nodded solemnly, like they were making a pact. Deal. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Rita used some of Victoria's money to take Lily shopping for new shoes, real ones that fit properly and didn't have holes in the soles. She bought ingredients for a proper celebration dinner after the graduation. She paid the electric bill and the water bill and put gas in the car without having to check her bank balance first. It felt strange and wonderful and slightly uncomfortable all at once, having money to spend without the constant anxiety of whether she could afford it. She understood why Victoria had said not to see it as payment. This was what having enough felt like, and it was a reminder of how little enough Rita usually had. The night before the graduation, Rita tried on her navy dress again, just to make sure it still looked okay. It did, simple, modest, appropriate. She hung it carefully on the back of her bedroom door so it would be ready. She couldn't sleep that night, her mind too full of thoughts. She thought about Tom, who should have been there to see Lily graduate. She thought about Victoria, who would never see her daughter graduate from anything. She thought about how fragile and precious and unfair life could be, how some people got too much time and others not nearly enough. Thursday arrived with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot. Rita helped Lily get ready, taking photos of her daughter in her graduation dress, a simple white dress they'd found on sale 3 weeks ago. Lily rolled her eyes at all the pictures but was clearly pleased by the attention. At the school auditorium, Rita found a seat near the middle, clutching the small purse that held her phone for pictures and a few tissues just in case she cried. The seats filled up around her with other parents and grandparents and siblings, everyone dressed nicely, everyone there to celebrate their student. Rita felt a pang of loneliness, being there by herself. Most of the other families had 2 parents or at least had brought other family members. It was just her, sitting alone representing Lily's entire support system. She wished Tom was there. She wished her parents lived closer. She wished she had siblings or cousins or anyone to share this moment with. The ceremony started with the principal's welcome speech, followed by speeches from teachers and the valedictorian. Rita listened politely but was really just waiting to see Lily walk across that stage. When they finally started calling names, she sat up straighter. Phone ready. Lily Chen, the principal announced, and there was Rita's daughter, walking confidently across the stage in her white dress and her new shoes, shaking hands with the principal and accepting her diploma. Rita snapped photos frantically, her eyes blurring with tears of pride and joy and grief all mixed together. After the ceremony, parents and students milled around the lobby taking more photos and congratulating each other. Rita found Lily surrounded by her friends, all of them laughing and comparing diplomas. When Lily saw her mother, she broke away from her group and came over. You looked beautiful up there, Rita said, pulling her into a hug that Lily tolerated for exactly 3 seconds before squirming away. Mom. Not in front of everyone, Lily protested, but she was smiling. Can I take a few more pictures of you outside? The lighting is better. They went outside where Rita took approximately 100 photos of Lily, who complained the entire time but was clearly enjoying herself. Rita was lining up another shot when she heard someone say her name. She turned to find Victoria Whitmore standing a few feet away, looking uncertain and nervous. She was dressed simply, much less flashy than she'd been at the thrift store, and her eyes were hidden behind sunglasses even though they were in the shade. I'm sorry, Victoria said quickly. I know I probably shouldn't be here. I wanted to see. Is that weird? That's probably weird. Rita glanced at Lily, who was looking at this stranger with curiosity. She made a quick decision. Lily, this is Mrs. Whitmore. She's the person who helped us out this week. Lily's eyes widened slightly with understanding, and she smiled politely. Thank you for the money. It really helped us a lot. Victoria looked like she might cry. You're welcome. Congratulations on your graduation. Your mother tells me you're very smart. I'm okay, Lily said with the practiced modesty of a teenager. Hey, Mom, can I go find my friends? We're all going to take a group photo. Go ahead, Rita said. Stay where I can see you. Lily ran off and Rita was left alone with Victoria, who was still standing stiffly like she might bolt at any second. I got your note, Rita said. And the money. You didn't have to do that. I know, Victoria said, but I wanted to. Did it help? More than you know, Rita admitted. We paid bills that were overdue. We bought Lily new shoes. We're having a nice dinner tonight instead of cheap takeout. It made a real difference. Victoria nodded and Rita could see tears behind the sunglasses. Good, that's good. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Around them, families were laughing and talking, celebrating their children's achievements. The contrast between the joyful atmosphere and the weight of their conversation was striking. Did you go to therapy? Rita asked. I did, Victoria said. Twice this week. And I went to the grief support group meeting. It was hard. Really hard. Sitting in a circle with other people talking about the children they lost. But it also helped, I think. It helped to be around people who understood. I'm glad, Rita said, and she meant it. I can't believe you're being kind to me right now, Victoria said, her voice breaking slightly. After what I did. After I tried to destroy your life over nothing. It wasn't nothing, Rita corrected gently. It was grief and pain and desperation. That's not nothing. It's just not criminal. The therapist says I need to forgive myself, Victoria said, but I don't know how to do that.